guys, here we are for Sunday school for the week of April 5th. Let's get started with some prayer. God, thank you so much for your word and for all the things that you speak to us about in it. And Lord, just help us to hear from you today and help us to just open our hearts and minds, Lord. In your name, amen. All right. So, a little recap. Last week, we were talking about David and his escape from Jerusalem because his son Absalom was coming to take the throne from him. And we ended with Absalom coming in and taking control, and his one of David's guys that David sent back to be a spy. And so we are going to continue on with 2Samuel chapter 17. This is still, I call it cloak and dagger. It's still a lot of spy and interesting things. I would love to see this movie. If somebody would make this movie, I would watch it. A lot of action, a lot of strategy, a lot of everything. It would be great. So here we are. And as we said, chapter 16 ends with Absalom getting advice from Ahithophel, which is one of the turncoats, one of the guys that was David's men. And then he turned and he's giving advice to Absalom now. The other guy is Hushai, and he is the man that David sent back. And so we'll start with reading verse 1 of chapter 17. Moreover, Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Now let me choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David tonight. I will come upon him while he is weary and weak, and make him afraid. And all the people who are with him will flee, and I will strike only the king. Then I will bring back all the people to you. When all return, except the man whom you seek, all the people will be at peace." And the saying pleased Absalom and all the elders. So Ahithophel gives Absalom a plan to continue chasing David down and how to go about it. It was probably a pretty wise plan, strategic. David is on the run. Has a lot of people in tow, family, kids, servants. It's not just him and an army. It's a lot of baggage, so to speak. And so David would not be in the best position to defend himself. And so this advice is probably pretty sound in that aspect. So Absalom gets this advice, and let's see what Absalom does now with that advice. Verse 5. Then Absalom said, "Now call Hushai the Archite also, and let us hear what he says also." So remember, Hushai came back from David and said to Absalom that he was going to be faithful to Absalom, give him advice. He was an advisor of David, but he said he was going to be now Absalom's advisor. So he says, verse 6, "And when Hushai came to Absalom, Absalom spoke to him, saying, Ahithophel has spoken in this manner. Shall we do as he says? If not, speak up." Verse 7, "So Hushai said to Absalom, The advice that Ahithophel has given is not good at this time. For, said Hushai, you know your father and his men, that they are mighty men, and they are enraged in their minds, like a bear robbed of her cubs in the field. And your father is a man of war, and will not camp with the people. Surely by now he is hidden in some pit or in some other place, and it will be, when some of them are overthrown at the first, that whoever hears it will say, There is a slaughter among the people who follow Absalom. And even he who is valiant, who is valiant, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, will melt completely. For all Israel knows that your father is a mighty man, and those who are with him are valiant men. Therefore I advise that all Israel be fully gathered to you from Dan to Beersheba, like the sand that is by the sea for multitude, and that you go to battle in person. So we will come upon him in some place where he may be found, and we will fall on him as the dew falls on the ground. And of him and all the men who are with him there shall not be left so much as one. Moreover, if he has withdrawn into a city, then all Israel shall bring ropes to that city, and we shall pull it into the river until there is not one small stone found there. So Absalom and all the men of Israel said, the advice of Hushai the Archite is better than the advice of Ahithophel, for the Lord has proposed to defeat the good advice of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring disaster on Absalom. So, Hushai's advice, was it good? Was it bad? Was it trickery? Kind of hard to say. But it was another side. It's a flip of the coin, right? So Ahithophel says, go, attack, take advantage of the weakness that David has right now. And then Hushai says, no, get everybody together. Get the whole army, get all of Israel together, and we'll just go down and squash him in one big battle. Two interesting ways to look at things. And so Absalom didn't make his decision by himself, if you notice. He had the other people there with him. It says, so Absalom and all the men of Israel said. So he had other guys there that he got advice, or that he listened to their counsel, and they agreed, no, Hushai's advice is better than Ahithophel. So let's see what happens here in verse 15, because they decided to gather everybody first rather than attack right away. Then Hushai said to Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, thus and so Ahithophel advised Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus and so I have advised. Now therefore send quickly and tell David, saying, do not spend this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily cross over, lest the king and all the people who are with him be swallowed up. All right, so he passes the information along through the spy chain, which is going from himself to the priests, and then the priests to their boys, and the boys were going to go on from there. So he starts it off. He tells the priests in verse 17, now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed in Rogel, for they dared not be seen coming into the city. So a female servant would come and tell them, and they would go and tell King David. Nevertheless, a lad saw them. And told Absalom. But both of them went away quickly and came to a man's house in Bahurim, who had a well in his court, and they went down into it. Then the woman took and spread a covering over the well's mouth and spread ground grain on it, and the thing was not known. And when Absalom's servants came to the woman at the house, they said, where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan? So the woman said to them, they have gone over the watered brook. And when they had searched and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. Now it came to pass, after they had departed, that they came up out of the well, and went and told King David, and said to David, arise and cross over the water quickly, for thus has Ahithophel advised against you. So the spy chain continued on. The priest told a servant, the servant told the boys took off. They got followed. First they were seen leaving, so then they were followed to this guy's house, or this guy's place. They hid in a well, and I can see this all playing out in my mind. I don't know if you can or not, but this would be, like I said, it'd be a great movie. Then Ahithophel I'm sorry. And then the two guys, Jonathan and Himesh, finally got the word to David and said, listen, you got to go now because they are coming after you. So verse 22, so David and all the people who were with him arose and crossed over the Jordan by morning light. Not one of them was left who had not gone over the Jordan. So that night, they all took off. They all made it across the Jordan to safety. Safety. They made it to a little bit further place. Verse 23. This is an interesting little insert here. Now when Ahithophel saw that his advice was not followed, he saddled a donkey and arose and went home to his house to his city. Then he put his household in order and hanged himself and died. And he was buried in his father's tomb. So we have a little insert, and we see that Ahithophel hangs himself. Like, apparently he can't handle the fact that the king didn't take his advice one time. And so it looks like his little pouty fit took him to killing himself. And so there he is. He has died. No more Ahithophel. Verse 24. Then David went to Mahanaim, and Absalom crossed over the Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. And Absalom made Amasa captain of the army instead of Joab. This Amasa was the son of a man who had gone in to Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, whose name was Jithra, an Israelite who had gone into Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister of Zeruiah, Joab's mother. So Israel and Absalom encamped in the land of Gilead. All right, so first off, let's look at who these people are. So we have Absalom, and we know that Absalom is David's son, right? And Joab, who was the king, or was David's, the guy who was in charge of David's army, they were cousins, Joab and Absalom. And then Amasa was also one of their cousins. So if you look at our fancy little sheet here, you will see up here, you see David, you see Zeruiah and Abigail, all siblings. Okay, so everybody on this line right here, siblings. And then down here, we see cousins. You got Joab and Amasa. They're cousins. Joab is Zeruiah's son, Amasa Abigail's son, and then down here, if you follow down David's line, you will see that Absalom is down there. I lost Absalom. He's gone. There he is. There's Absalom. I didn't underline Absalom. He's over here. All right, so all of them are cousins. Interesting. Big old family feud going on. As to who's picking who and what side are going on. Next up, let's look at the map. Here we see the map. So this is Jerusalem where David started. He took off and he was hanging out here. And then he's told by the spies that they need to go because they're coming after him, and they cross over and start heading up away. And then we see that Absalom's men came over and they encamped in Gilead. This is Gilead over on this side. And that's what this area is called. And that's where they camped. And so we see them getting ready to have a face-off, which we will not cover this week, but that's where they are. Verse 27. Now it happened when David had come to Mahanaim that Shobi, the son of Nahash from Rabbah, the people of Ammon, Mechir, the son of Amiel from Lodebar, and Barzillai, the Gileadite from Rogelim. All big fancy names. I'm sure they love their hometowns, but they're hard to say. So those three guys brought beds and basins earthen vessels and wheat, barley and flour, parched grain and beans, lentils and parched seeds, honey and curds, sheep and cheese of the herd, for David and the people who were with him to eat. For they said, the people are hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. So you see that God provided for David once again. Machir was one of the guys who took care of Mephibosheth. And we look back at that time when Saul and Jonathan died, and David was looking to find if there was any of Jonathan's relatives left. They found Mephibosheth, and Machir was who was taking care of him at that time. And so the kindness that David showed Mephibosheth and his family is now coming back to help him out. This is a concept that some people would refer to as karma. I look at it as, some people say what goes around comes around, and there's truth to that. What goes around comes around. If you show kindness to one person, they will show kindness to you, right? Most likely. If you show meanness to somebody, then a lot of times the meanness does come back to you. So it's not surprising that people believe in karma, believe in that concept. But there is a truth to the matter of that if you are kind to people, then kindness comes back. And we see that David, who for the most part did things by God's book. He did things, he followed God's orders. He loved people. He let God take care of retaliation, revenge. He was not a vengeful person. And in this aspect, God is now providing for David in his time of need by the people who David showed kindness to. So we're going to leave David right there where he is recovering from this journey. He has now been restocked with supplies, and we will check him out next week and see where God is taking him from there. All right, let's pray. God, thank you so much for just one more lesson that we can learn from David's life. Lord, maybe somebody else heard something besides that from your word today. But I do know, God, that the kindness and love are things that you would have us to do, and things that you would have us to live our lives by and have us be known by as being loving, kind people. And David was that way with people that needed to be, and he was shown kindness and love back. Just be with us this week, God, and help us to live for you. In your name, amen.